Hey there, good morning everyone, and a warm welcome back. I'm Errol Barnett as we look live over New York City. I believe that's Long Island City out there somewhere. The entire city will have a new mayor come January, and that's where we begin this election edition of today's top stories. Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani will replace Mayor Eric Adams. Mamdani's victory speech last night was upbeat and defiant, and he called out President Trump.
In this moment of political darkness, New York will be the light.
Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill is trading in Washington, D.C. for the New Jersey State House. Polls showed her neck and neck with Republican challenger Jack Ciattarelli, but Sherrill came out on top by a solid margin.
And as the president is backing away from this ideal, cutting SNAP, ripping away health care, terminating Gateway, we here in New Jersey are bound to fight for a different future for our children.
And Democrat and former Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger beat out Virginia's current lieutenant governor to become the first woman to lead that state.
It's a big deal to the women older than I am who forged the path in dreams, hard work, and in a belief that change and progress would be possible.
And out west in California, voters approved the Democrat-backed congressional map. Governor Gavin Newsom began this effort in response to President Trump's call to draw new maps in Texas in order for Republicans to gain more House seats in the 26 midterms.
But we're seeing all across this country, 7 million people strong, standing up, not just for themselves, but for each other and for these enduring and historic principles of our founding fathers.
And in Minnesota, ranked choice voting will determine who becomes Minneapolis's next mayor. Incumbent Mayor Jacob Frey was in the lead in the first round, but none of the candidates received at least 50% of the vote. So the city will now tally the ranked choice votes. There were more than a dozen candidates on that ballot. All right, so let's take a deep breath here. CBS News Chief Washington analyst Robert Costa joins us from our D.C. bureau for more on what last night's results really mean. Bob, good morning to you. You know, people should be aware that during any president's term, the opposition party typically does well, especially if the economy is not thriving. But considering our current political climate, what do these wins mean for Democrats?
Great to be with you, Errol. That's certainly a political through line in many of these off-year elections. Who's ever in power in the White House, their party often struggles in these off-year elections because it's a reaction. It's the first wave of reaction to a president's first year in office, time and time again. But we do see a lot of different lessons learned from these elections. The biggest one, based on my conversations with both Republicans and Democrats, is that economic affordability is on the minds of so many voters. They want to know if they can pay their rent, if they can pay their health care costs. And whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you have to address that issue if you're going to be successful.
And how then can President Trump respond to these results? I mean, up until the election for Mamdani, for example, he threatened to withhold federal funding for New York City. Might he follow through on that, or might he focus more on delivering a more positive economy for Americans?
Based on my conversations, Errol, with people close to President Trump, he doesn't see it entirely that way. Confrontation, though, is certainly a possibility. I have confirmed with people around the president that he's actively talking about having some kind of confrontation with New York City. He believes that Zohran Mamdani, the mayor-elect, is a leader for the country in terms of leading one of the nation's biggest cities who will have a negative impact. And he has used the National Guard, deployed them to different parts of this country already. There have been immigration raids in so many parts of this country. Based on my conversations with Republicans, New York very much could be something that's on the radar of this administration in terms of immigration raids and possibly the National Guard if the president feels in some way the city is out of control. Now, Zohran Mamdani, he has said he is ready to manage the city. He's ready to do it in his way. But these are two sides that are already lining up against each other.
And that's interesting, Bob, because these results do show there is a resistance to the president's efforts. In California, for example, voters there said yes to Proposition 50. This approves new congressional maps, which is a response to Trump's directed effort for Republicans to do the same in their states. So what might that win in California mean for the midterms?
I know so much attention is on understandably, on New Jersey and Virginia and, of course, New York City, the Big Apple. But as a political reporter, I would argue that the biggest election last night was in California, because that shapes the midterm election map next year. Democrats, if this all moves forward as expected, will now have, because of what happened in California last night, called Proposition 50, will have the ability to potentially win 5 additional seats in the U.S. House of Representatives next year. What's the consequence of that? Well, it's easy. That means Democrats could have a better chance of winning the majority. And if they win that majority, President Trump's administration will face a lot of problems. Subpoenas from the U.S. House, a real effort to constrain the executive branch's power. So for President Trump, what happened in California is very meaningful. If he doesn't have Republicans in Congress backing him up and it's a Democratic majority, watch out.
Bob Costa in our D.C. bureau with that analysis. Bob, great to see you. Thanks for being with us.